A late-night comedy show has been yanked off the air. The president is hinting that networks critical of him could lose their broadcast licenses. And the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, says it's looking into the matter. All of this stems from comments Jimmy Kimmel Live host Jimmy Kimmel made about the fatal shooting of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. The resulting storm has reignited a debate over free speech, government power, and the rules that govern American airwaves. First, what exactly is the FCC? Picture it as the landlord of publicly owned spectrum. Radio and TV stations can broadcast only if they hold an FCC license, usually renewed every 8 years. In exchange, they must serve the public interest, convenience, and necessity. Because those licenses are essential to a station's survival, the FCC's power, while limited by the First Amendment, can still be immense. That power is rooted in two landmark Supreme Court cases. Red Lion Broadcasting Company versus FCC, 1969. The court upheld the now-defunct Fairness Doctrine, which required broadcasters to present contrasting views on controversial issues. The justices said that because spectrum is scarce, the public's right to diverse viewpoints outweighed a station's absolute editorial freedom. Even though the FCC repealed the Fairness Doctrine in 1987, Red Lion left a lasting principle. Broadcast licenses carry public service obligations that do not apply to newspapers or online outlets. FCC versus Pacific Foundation, 1978. This case involved George Carlin's 7 Filthy Words monologue. The court ruled that the FCC could fine a station for airing indecent content, calling broadcasting uniquely pervasive and easily accessible to children. Pacific reinforced that the government may impose some content rules on broadcasters, though the decision focused on indecency, not political speech. Fast forward to today. After Kimmel's suspension, President Trump suggested that networks delivering overwhelmingly negative coverage should have their licenses reviewed or revoked. He pointed to FCC Chair Brendan Carr, his own appointee, as the person who could make it happen. Carr has echoed that ABC's parent company, Disney, might not be meeting its public interest duties. Could the FCC actually pull a license over political commentary? Directly punishing a station for criticizing a sitting president would almost certainly be struck down as unconstitutional viewpoint discrimination. The Communications Act explicitly forbids the FCC from censoring speech, but the agency's public interest standard is elastic. Commissioners sympathetic to the White House could, in theory, argue that relentlessly one-sided coverage fails that test, essentially reviving elements of the Fairness Doctrine without calling it that. Even short of revocation, the threat alone has muscle. Stations know that license challenges are costly and time-consuming. The mere possibility can prompt executives to tone down coverage, a classic chilling effect. Free speech advocates on both the left and the right warn that once any administration weaponizes licensing, all viewpoints become vulnerable when power changes hands. The dispute also raises a bigger, modern question. Does the spectrum scarcity logic from Red Lion still hold in an era of cable, satellite, and limitless internet streaming? If audiences can get news from almost anywhere, why should broadcasters have fewer First Amendment protections than digital platforms do?
The courts haven't revisited that premise in decades, but the conflict now playing out could force a fresh look. For now, the standoff sits at the intersection of law, politics, and technology. The FCC must decide whether to investigate ABC's license. Broadcasters must decide how boldly to cover the story. And viewers are left watching a real-time test of whether rules from the analog age can or should be used to police modern speech. One thing is certain: the delicate balance between the government's duty to manage the airwaves and the constitutional promise of free expression is once again on the line. The outcome could shape not just one late-night program, but the future boundaries of political speech on American television.